Today I'm going to tell you a story so quietly powerful, it lingers long after the last word fades. Set in the American West, where the desert wind moves like a whisper across endless red mesas. It's a place where silence holds secrets and fate waits at the edge of every canyon. This is where two solitary lives crossed paths, not in chaos, not in violence, but in stillness strong enough to change them both. It began with a single glance across a river at sunrise. A small, silent moment that carried enough weight to bend the course of two destinies. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. I have walked this stretch of country since I was a boy. I know the taste of its dust, the way the night wind slips across the mesa and hums through the rocks. My name is Zephyr. I am Apache. I don't say that to justify a thing. I say it so you understand the kind of man speaking now. For 3 years I kept to myself, not because I couldn't find company, but because I had grown tired of the kind that takes and never sees. I let the land be enough. I rode the ridgelines, sat alone in the canyon, watching the light crawl over stone, listened to silence settle like ash. Then word drifted in that someone had taken the old place that once belonged to Dorian Vale. A woman, living there alone. I heard it and felt nothing at first. The first time I saw her, she didn't know I was there. She stood in the cabin doorway facing west, still as fence post wood, watching the sun sink like she meant to memorize it. She was taller than most women, auburn hair lit copper by the dying light, arms folded, quiet. I watched maybe a minute before riding on. But a man feels something before he names it. A pull low in the chest. I felt it that evening. She would later tell it differently. I came here because I'd run out of places that could hold me, she said. Folks told me the desert doesn't care about anyone. That sounded honest. She arrived with one trunk, one horse, and a cabin that needed mending. That first night she lay awake listening to coyotes and wind scraping the boards. She'd heard about an Apache man who rode the territory. The Holland Graves crowd said it like a warning. She tucked it away and let it sit. You showed up like you'd already made up your mind, I told her once. I hadn't made up anything, she said. I was just done leaving. That's the same thing. Maybe. The first morning I truly saw her was down by the river before sunrise. Cottonwood stood gray in the early light. I heard movement before I spotted her. I reined in on the ridge above. She was at the water's edge, boots off, hair loose down her back like it had been poured there. She bent to the river and her hair spilled forward. Then she straightened and pushed it back with both hands. Simple. Ordinary. I have replayed that motion more times than I'll admit. Then she looked straight at me. No flinch, no searching the ridge. Just her eyes locking on mine, as if she'd known all along I was there. Most people look away. Even Ivy Rourke once crossed the street rather than meet my stare. But this woman held steady, curious, calm. I sat on that horse and looked back. Neither of us moved. The river seemed to hush. Maybe the birds kept singing, and I just stopped hearing them. All I knew was her. A woman who doesn't flinch when a stranger watches from horseback is either foolish or stronger than she looks. I knew within seconds she wasn't foolish. When I finally turned my horse, I felt her gaze follow between my shoulders. That night by the fire, I thought about green eyes that refused to drop. The next morning I rode out before the sun cleared the mesa. I won't pretend I didn't know why. She was already there, earlier than the day before. A man can tell when he's been on someone's mind. We looked at each other longer that time. The air was cold enough I could see her breath. She didn't run. You need to understand what that means. I am not a small man. I am Apache, a stranger on a ridge. I rode away slower. Later, she told me what she'd thought that first morning. "I remember thinking you were the stillest man I'd ever seen," Alara Voss said. "Like you'd grown out of that rock. And you didn't look away. I don't know why I didn't. Something in me decided you were worth looking at." She walked back to the cabin shaking. Not from fear. She knew fear. This was something else. Something she hadn't felt in years. The second morning, she went down earlier. She brought a bucket she didn't need. "You came back early," I said later. "So did you. That means you already knew why." "I came back," she answered. "That's all I'm saying." After that, the land felt different beneath my boots. Same earth, same sky, but a new direction had settled in. I don't rush. Tovar, my father, taught me the hunter who charges never eats. So I watched her, not to claim her, but to understand her. There's a difference. I noticed how she walked to the river with quiet purpose. How she split wood, fixed fence posts, hauled water without complaint. No drama, no display. In the afternoons, she sat on the porch facing west, going still the same way she had that first evening. I rode past the canyon entrance when I knew she'd be there, not close. Just near enough for the air between us to grow familiar. Waiting has its own kind of ache. At night, I didn't think in soft feelings. I thought of details. The swing of her hair, the exact shade of her eyes, green sharp against desert dust. By the fifth day, I knew the outline of her life. By the sixth, I decided I would speak. On the eighth day, she walked into the canyon late in the afternoon. I was already there. She rounded the bend and stopped when she saw me. But she didn't leave. In those days before he spoke, Alara felt me the way you feel weather shift. Pressure changing in the air. She knew I passed near the canyon, knew I watched from the ridge. It didn't feel like threat. It felt like being measured. "No one's ever considered me before," she would say. "Looked at, sure. Wanted, maybe. But studied." When she stepped into that canyon and found me waiting, the ground seemed to tilt beneath her boots. "You walked in," I said, "and you didn't turn back." "No," she said. She didn't step back. "I've been watching you for 8 days," I told her. "I know." I spoke first. That was always how it would be. I didn't dress it up or soften it. I let it land plain between us. She held my eyes when she answered. No flicker, no pretending. "My name is Zephyr," I said. I told her the canyon had a name in my language, a place between two silences. She nodded once. "Alara Voss." I said her name quietly, testing it. It carried weight. Fit her. "You've been coming here every morning," I said. "So have you." I noticed. "I wasn't sure you'd say anything," she admitted. "Does this place have a name?" "My people call it the passage between two silences." "That's beautiful." "It fits. Two silences meeting. That's what we've been." She studied the canyon walls, then looked back at me. "How long are you staying out here?" "As long as it takes," she said. "I don't know what for yet." I pointed to a mark carved into the rock. Mackay made that. "Your grandfather?" "Yes." "What does it mean?" "I was here. Remember me." She smiled faintly. "That's what we all want, isn't it?" "Tell me something true," I said. "Something you haven't told anyone in Holland Graves." She didn't hesitate. "I'm more afraid of going numb than of getting hurt." "Then you're already brave. Or maybe I'm just tired of being careful." "Will you come back tomorrow?" She met my eyes again. "I'll be here." When she walked out of that canyon, the silence she left behind felt different. I stood there thinking that woman is going to bend the shape of my life. Her words stayed with me all evening, more afraid of numbness than pain. That's not weakness. That's choice. She came back the next morning, and the one after that. Each day we talked longer. I learned the way her mind moved, sharp, dry humor that came quick and vanished quicker. I began waiting for it. Something opened in that canyon, and neither of us tried to close it. Later she told me, "You said, I'll be here." I carried that all the way back to the cabin. After that, she stopped pretending she was going to the river for water. She knew why she was going. So did I. I listened to her in a way no one else had. Not planning my reply, just listening. When she told me she feared numbness more than pain, I meant it when I said she was brave. The space between us was no longer empty. It was alive. On the 10th day, I took her to the hidden pool beyond the eastern boulders. I'd kept that place to myself for years. 3 sides wrapped in stone, willows guarding the 4th. Water clear enough to see every pebble at the bottom. She stood there quiet for a long time. "It feels like the rest of the world doesn't even know this exists," she said softly. The air there was different than in the canyon. No walls closing in, just sky, water, and the sound of her breathing. "You're not afraid of me," I said. "No." "You never were." "No." "Most women are," I admitted. "Then you've been around the wrong women?" she said simply. I laughed, real and unguarded. It surprised both of us. We sat by that water until the light shifted and the air cooled. Neither of us moved to leave. "Have you ever wanted something you knew would complicate your life?" she asked. "I'm sitting next to it." She didn't look away. She let the words rest between us. I felt it then, clear, undeniable. "Tell me you don't want this," I said evenly. "Say it, and I won't bring it up again." She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her eyes held mine. That was answer enough. "You don't have to say anything," I told her. "I already know." "Then you know more than I'm ready to admit," she said. We stayed there until the sky burned gold. She didn't leave. I didn't ask her to. I rode home slow. A man who knows what's coming doesn't rush it. That silence at the pool stayed with me. Her body had answered long before her voice. That night by the fire, I made up my mind. I would take her to the mesa beneath the stars. A man who knows what he wants doesn't circle forever. He moves, steady and sure. Later she would say, "When you told me to say I didn't want it, I tried. I couldn't." She knew exactly what was happening and couldn't stop it. "You don't have to say it," I'd told her. "I already know." That certainty in my voice unsettled her, but it also steadied her. "Come to the mesa tonight," I said the next day. "When the stars are out, I want to show you something. I'll be there." She didn't pause to think. She'd already decided. I loved that about her. That mesa was mine alone. Tovar had taken me there once as a boy. No one else. She rode up after dark. I heard her horse before I saw her shape rise out of the night. She dismounted and sat beside me. The Milky Way spilled bright overhead, enough to cast our shadows faint on the stone. "My people say the stars are the fires of onyx," I told her. "Those who walked before us." "I like that," she said. We talked about Mackay, about Tovar, about the life she'd left behind, and about Mercer Thane, though she didn't say his name yet. "I've been running for 2 years," she admitted. "I'm tired of it." "Then stop." "I've been standing still a long time," I told her, waiting for something I didn't have a name for. "Do you have one now?" I reached for her hand, slow and deliberate. Not by accident. not unsure. When she held on, something broke open in my chest, something locked for years. "I won't pretend anymore," I said. "You deserve honesty." "Then be honest," she answered. "I can take it. I've wanted to be near you since that first morning at the river." "I know. I've wanted it too. I was waiting for you to say it." "I'm not afraid," she said quietly. "I know you're not." "I'm not afraid," Alara said. "I need you to understand that." "I do," I answered. "That's one of the things I saw in you from the start. Every wall you built it facing the wrong direction." She gave me a slow look. "I'm beginning to think you're right. So what happens now?" "Now we stop pretending," I said. "That's enough for tonight. Stay. Wait until the sky begins to turn. There's no sense leaving before the world shows you what it can do in the dark." I wasn't planning to go anywhere. "I won't tell you everything that passed between us on that mesa. Some things aren't meant to be laid out in the open. Some things are meant to be carried. I've wanted many things in my life. I've held them, lost them, let them go. What happened that night was different. The stars drifted the way they always do, slow and steady, like the fires of onyx burning overhead. We stayed until the first gray light edged over the east. She fell asleep against my shoulder just before dawn. I didn't move. I sat there and held her, letting the morning come. When I took her hand on that mesa, she later told me she felt her defenses collapse. Not shattered, just lowered, like gates opening without noise. Nothing about that night was loud. It was quiet, slow, certain. She slept with her head against me. When she woke, I hadn't shifted an inch. "I stopped running that night," she told me later. "I didn't even realize how long I'd been running until I stopped." I have been a patient man for most of my life. I've waited for storms to pass, for seasons to turn. But somewhere along the line, I had stopped expecting anything new. What I'd been holding space for had finally arrived. You recognize it the way you smell rain before it falls. I've watched dozens of sunrises from that mesa. No two are ever the same. That morning the sky burned orange behind her, and she looked around without confusion. No regret in her eyes. No fear. I expected doubt. Doubt lives in the morning. Night makes everything softer. "What does this mean?" she asked. "It means what we allow it to mean," I said. "That's the only honest answer. A promise made under the stars shouldn't be forced to carry more than it can hold." "I don't want promises," she replied. "I want what's real." Even then, especially then, she chose truth over comfort. Now I'll tell you what I know about her. She is stronger than she looks. She carries her burdens without ceremony. No announcements, no dramatics. She walks through pain with her chin level and her boots laced tight. Her humor comes quick and dry, sharp as flint, gone before you can grab it. I wait for it like a man waits for a flash of lightning in a summer storm. She is the only person I've ever known who can sit in silence beside me, without trying to fill it. Sometimes I think about that first morning at the river. How close I came to riding on. How easily none of this could have happened. The land remembers it all. The riverbank, the canyon, the hidden pool, the mesa under the stars. Stone keeps secrets better than men do. She came into the desert planning to disappear. Instead, she was found. I didn't go searching for her, but I recognized her, the way water recognizes its path downhill. One day I told her, "A hunter who runs at the animal goes hungry. You have to know what you're facing first." She raised an eyebrow. "Was I the animal?" "No," I said. "You were the horizon." I've always been a man who decides once. When I choose, I don't circle back. I chose her. I won't revisit it. She asked me once, "When you told me to say I didn't want this, what would you have done if I had?" I thought about it. "I would have believed you," I said. "And then I would have waited until you stopped lying." She laughed, full and bright that time. "That's either the most arrogant thing I've ever heard," she said, "or the most romantic. Maybe it's both. What I know now, what I didn't know a month ago, is this. A man can be whole on his own and still be made greater by one specific person. What started as a glance across a river has not loosened its hold on either of us. I don't expect it to. Alara once told me what it felt like from her side. To be seen like that, she said. Not stared at. Seen. I had noticed her before I ever spoke her name. I named her courage back to her. When I told her she was already brave, she carried those words like something returned to its rightful place. "He never rushes," she said of me. "Not a single thing. And somehow that patience feels stronger than force." She came to the desert to vanish. Instead, she became more visible than she had ever been. She doesn't regret the silence at the pool, or the night on the mesa, or the morning after. I once told her the land holds everything that happens upon it. She believes that. "The riverbank," she said softly, "the canyon, the pool, the mesa." "You said you came here to disappear," I reminded her once. "I did," she answered. "And instead, you found me." "I wasn't looking," I said, "but I knew you the moment I saw you." "What did you recognize?" "I recognized that you were done pretending. I saw it from the ridge the very first morning." She studied me for a long moment. "Then you saw me before I saw myself." "No," I said quietly. "I just saw you clearly. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West. Stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blaze the trail. Subscribe, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you. Aviso legal/disclaimer. These stories are crafted purely for entertainment and may contain imaginative additions or dramatic interpretations inspired by old frontier eras. We use AI-based resources, voice, imagery, and drafting as part of our creative process. But every final detail is carefully reviewed and shaped by human effort to preserve emotional depth and authenticity. We strictly follow YouTube's rules regarding AI-generated content and refrain from deepfakes, altered identities, or misleading representations. All images, sounds, and related materials are lawfully obtained. Please do not reuse, modify, or distribute any portion of this content without written permission. Thank you for valuing creativity, respect, and original work.